Hi, I'd like to welcome everyone to another in the series of webinars designed for ports, terminal operators, harbor maintenance, and maritime organizations. I'm Terry Bills, the Transportation Industry Manager here at Esri, and today I'm joined by Matt Gibson, an account executive for ports, and Eric Rodenberg, a solution engineer on the ports team. These webinars we hope help illustrate how ports can leverage GIS technology to become more efficient, and ultimately how GIS and location intelligence can help ports become more successful and to extend their process of digital transformation. And we feel that ports play an ever-increasing role in our global supply chains and a critical and often underappreciated role in their respective regional economies. So we hope to highlight that role in these webinars and to focus on how ports can leverage technology to increase their competitiveness and collaboration within the larger environment that they operate in. So today we're focused on how you can actually get started with GIS in ports. And many of the larger ports have already started on that journey, but we did want to present the outlines of how smaller and medium-sized ports can leverage the technology to take advantage of the benefits realized by the larger ports. But before we begin, I'd like to point out that we are recording this webinar, and while everyone will be on mute, there will be time for question and answers at the end of the presentation. You can type your questions into the question box, and we'll try to answer as many as time allows. And additionally, the slides that you do see on today's webinar will be posted online, so you can go to the Esri GeoNet website to access these slides. So first off, let me start with the question that I'm most frequently asked by senior port executives, and which is, why should I implement GIS at my port? And I certainly understand that question. Ports don't do it just because they're fascinated by technology, and there really has to be a business driver. So am I going to save money, and how? Is it going to make me more efficient, and how? And ultimately, these are all very valid questions, and we hope that you'll begin to see the outlines of some of those answers to those questions today. So let's look at some of the reasons GIS should be a core part of your information architecture at the port. So first, my experience is that there's certainly no shortage of data and various information business systems at ports. The problem that each one is often siloed and really not easily shared with those who need to get access to that information from across different divisions or offices at the ports. So one of the things that GIS is uniquely capable of doing is to integrate these various information sources, in essence, to break down those silos. How many ports can say that should an event occur that for example, their security personnel could access highly accurate utility information, or that the property management group has access to the latest asset condition information? We need to share information constantly at the ports, but how many ports really struggle with that basic requirement? So first, helping to break down the silos of information. Secondly, one of the things that GIS does very well is really to organize all of those information sources and to make them easily accessible to anyone with the proper authorizations, so that we believe that everyone should be able to locate and access the information that they need with 3 clicks or less, regardless of where they are. So on any device, 3 clicks or less to the data. And again, how many ports can say they meet that challenge? Most ports that I'm familiar with have a map room somewhere where the interns and junior engineers are sent to look for that engineering drawing from 10 years ago. And they have to struggle with, do I have the latest one? But this is really part of what GIS excels in, organizing the data and information and making that easily accessible. And third, with GIS, I can visualize all of my key business systems, whether it's lease management, security management, environmental monitoring, utility management, or any other business system that I have. It allows me to visualize critical business data to understand where, and ultimately to help me analyze why. So by easily visualizing data and information, I can more quickly understand and analyze patterns and gain a deeper understanding of my operations. And that leads to the next advantage, that GIS ultimately gives me a 360-degree real-time view of everything going on at the port. And that in turn gives me greater operational visibility and greater operational control to improve my performance. I can't improve something if I can't see or understand it, and that is really what GIS delivers. And just as importantly, GIS allows me to share that operational view with others, so I can coordinate and collaborate across the port. Certainly the concept of collaborative decision-making really started in the airport market, where the airport, the airlines, and air traffic control needed to collaborate to improve efficiencies at busy airports. Well, those same concepts apply at ports, where we have an even greater number of actors who need to share some core information to be able to improve their operational performance. It doesn't help a terminal operator if the port is highly inefficient or if traffic is backed up and slowing down drayage services. The various entities all need to work together to improve efficiencies at the port, and GIS helps to facilitate that communication and that collaboration. And finally, GIS gives the port a highly effective way to communicate with the larger community. Most ports that I'm aware of play a really critical role in their larger economies, but that fact and all of the huge positives associated with ports are often not effectively communicated back to the community. GIS provides an effective way not only to communicate with the community, but also with customers and with prospective customers. But at the end of the day, however, it's really all about increasing our operational efficiencies. That's ultimately what GIS can do. How can we move more containers across the dock and increase our performance? And that's where each one of these reasons together, taken together, gives us the reason why you should implement GIS at your port. I can't tell you exactly how much you will save with GIS, but I can tell you that I haven't seen a port turn back after it started implementing GIS. And from our perspective, we feel ports are just beginning to understand how they can begin to leverage some of these benefits. So we hope that today you'll see a few of these reasons that will make you want to implement GIS at your ports. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt. And Matt, if you want to take it away for the next section.
Sounds great. Thank you very much, Terry. This is Matt Gibson, the port specialist for Esri's transportation team. And I'm going to set the stage for just a moment and before Eric takes over. So there, you'll see these themes over and over in today's presentation, and it's about taking action, getting started today. It doesn't have to be a 3-month or a 6-month or a 2-year project. You can take action, use the resources that you see, and get started. We hope that this will be beneficial for potential new customers, but also existing customers that are looking to expand GIS into an additional department. We're going to focus on enabling field mobility because of the importance and demand that we see in the industry. And through this, we'll be eliminating data silos. As part of the agenda, we're going to take it into 3 big chunks. I'll set the stage on the technology foundation. Eric will then show some demonstrations of how to do this. I'll provide a few summarized examples of what our technology can accomplish in different departments, and then discuss a path to success. So looking at the Esri system, we often start with the system of record. And where GIS is unique is we have the ability to connect a lot of different types of information together. So if you have financial records and engineering records and even real estate, we can connect that through location and use that information throughout the enterprise. And that includes real-time IoT sensors, field mobility tools, etc. We can then use our powerful analytics tools that are built in to help you understand the world that's going on around you. You'll see an example of this shortly. And more importantly, we put this in the hands of the decision makers, the users, whether they be in the field, using a mobile device, at their desktop, or in a conference room looking at a dashboard. This is all built together, and it's all configurable off-the-shelf technology that you're going to see. And so it works together to benefit the greater enterprise. We call this the Esri system of systems, and it's the platform of our technology. Now, how customers have used Esri's technology in the past may surprise you. We are the subject matter experts in mapping and visualization, but we are able to do so much more than that. Course typically use us for all of these things, and I'll provide an example and walk through what we mean. So let's start by just looking at these top three: the mapping and visualization, field mobility, data management, etc. We're going to start with a paper form, and many ports still use paper, and unfortunately this is a highly siloed type of information. If you think about it, it's only useful to the individual holding it. It's also not intelligent. You have to read every section and fill out every box, check every block, and hopefully you get all of the required information in. In contrast, one of Esri's configurable mobile apps is a smart form. So it can pre-populate information that is already available. You can use it as you make certain selections. It will show you the necessary information that's needed. So if you click on one section and provide an answer, then it can populate the other required fields for you. And very importantly, you can relay this information from your mobile device back to the rest of the enterprise without physically going back to the office. So this enables your field workers to have apps that help them do their job and convey that information back to the users in the office. They can see in real time the status. It includes pictures and details about the asset or the incident, and you can see analytics about the performance. This enables people in the office or in the enterprise to take action on that. If it's a maintenance request that needs engineering, you can send the information over to engineering and let them get started much faster than an individual driving back to the office and having a meeting to discuss it. So we started with these three topics. You're able to see in the field the map. You're able to take that information with you. And through the smart app, it improves data management because now you can relay that information back to the office. By doing so, the rest of the enterprise is able to monitor the performance of what's going on. You can see in real-time analytics that's done on this data, which aids your decision. Where do you put your next resources? This helps in future planning and decision-making, and you can collaborate with the entire enterprise with what you see. And then finally, if you need to share it with your tenants, with the other workers, or even your community around you, you can do so with this platform. An example of this is the Port of New Orleans. They converted their paper-based inspection forms to one of our configurable apps, and we're able to realize dramatic savings in time and man hours. with also the benefit of record keeping. Now, Maggie presented this at the special interest group at Esri's user conference, and that user conference is coming up again in July, and we hope that you can attend. It'll be at no cost, and especially want to invite you to the special interest group that for ports that takes place. So let's take a look at how we can help you get started quickly through some of Eric's demonstrations. Eric?
Thanks, Matt. All right, so what I really wanted to focus on today is how to, I wanted to show you how you could get started the quickest. We really wanted to make sure that you were able to see a way to get started as quickly as possible without having to go through a bunch of gymnastics to get a solution configured. So what I'm going to do here is I have a Google search for ArcGIS solutions, and it has this ArcGIS solutions government utility and defense solutions. And let's go ahead and click on this. So this takes you to our configurable solutions page, and these solutions are deployed and available to you at no cost. So you can come out here and search for various resources. In fact, I am going to go to resources, and when I do that, it gives me a whole series of industries. Now, ports are like a city, so there aren't configurable solutions for ports specifically, but there are configurable solutions for things like stormwater, for road assets, for roadway assets, for all the types of things that you're responsible for managing. So if we go to industries, we can search those various industries. So for instance, if I wanted to map all my roadway assets, I'll go to state and local government, I'll scroll down to the bottom and click on transportation, and all the configurable solutions pop up related to maintaining and managing a road network, or maintaining and managing a roadway asset inventory, or doing plan and drawing design. So if you're doing anything with pavement, if you're doing anything with all of your access roads, we have solutions to help you manage the assets along those roadways. If you're doing any capital planning, we've got tools to help with that. So I just wanted to make those, make it known that those are available to you. Now, if we go down to utilities, and specifically we search stormwater, there are a whole series of solutions related to stormwater management. And that's really what I want to focus on today, is stormwater data management for ArcGIS Online. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this solution, and I'm going to start by deploying it now. And to get started, it's going to ask me just a couple of questions. You can't really see because it's grayed out, but I am logged into my organization right now, my ArcGIS Online organization. I'm going to choose Get Now from this big blue button, and I'm going to pick my projection. So for me, I'm going to use Web Mercator, since all of my apps. So I want to make sure that I can use these apps from anywhere, and make sure that the data is projected natively in a web optimized projection. So I'm going to choose Web Mercator, and let's go ahead and deploy this. And while this is running, I'm going to talk a little bit about the solution that we're downloading. So what you'll notice here is there are a couple of things required to use this. First of all, you have to have an ArcGIS Online account. Secondly, you need to have access to ArcGIS Pro. Now, it's not required that you have it, but it helps if you do. And I'll get into that a little bit later in terms of the data management aspect. It also wants you to use ArcGIS Field Apps. This is our mobile app for Android and iOS devices. So this is going to enable you to go out in the field and collect data with your iPhone, or with an Android phone, or with an iPad, or some sort of tablet device. And then what you'll management solution. This is data management back in the office on my desktop. We get a stormwater editor. This is a web-based application for doing stormwater data editing and editing of map notes. So map notes are like a markup layer that I can use to mark things up, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. We have a stormwater viewer for the people that we designate as viewers in the organization who just need to see where these assets are, but they don't need to do any editing. And then we have a dashboard as well that gives management, that gives us a view of all of our asset collection and where things are. There's a stormwater map notes manager. And again, map notes are a markup layer. So I may have contractors that I want to give the ability to mark up a map. I don't want them to edit my assets. So I give them access to this map notes layer where they can do markup and alert us to any issues that they might find without actually editing anything. And then we can send our own people out to do the checks and finish the workflow, making sure that those assets get updated. There is a mobile viewer, so I can view in the field assets around me. And then there's an editor. So if I'm a maintenance worker and I'm responsible for installing new assets or inspecting existing assets, this tool allows me to do that data capture on those assets or modify an asset or actually do an inspection on the asset. So 7 apps come with this solution. And so let's go back and check on it. And we can see it's done. It's actually deployed and it's pretty fast. I mean, it took about 1.5 minutes for it to deploy. And if we go into my content of my organization, I have this folder Port Tampa and I have this folder Truck Ferry Dispatch. There's a new solution here, or a new folder here when I refresh, called Stormwater Management. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's refresh the map. And you'll see that the folder is now available, Stormwater Data Management for ArcGIS Online. And there's about 25 items in this folder. We've got all my web applications, we've got web maps, we've got the dashboard, and then I've got services. I've got view-only services, I've got editable services, I've got basically everything I need to do my job, which is fantastic in terms of getting started. So everything is here that I need. It even created all the groups for me. So when I go to invite users to actually start going out and doing the field inspections or viewing the results of the field inspections, I've got all the group infrastructure built so I can share everything appropriately to the people who need it. So this solution really is a launch pad into getting started quickly. It created all the data for me, along with using a stormwater data schema. So it's got the schema that you would need to manage all of your assets in a stormwater environment. It's got all the maps, it's got all the apps, and it's got all the groups taken care of for me. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with this. So I'm gonna go back to this second tab, and I'm gonna go ahead and just open this up. And this is gonna take me to that solution that we were just looking at a moment ago. And I'm gonna do a couple of things. So first thing I wanna do is I wanna get right to the field use. So let's go into the stormwater users. And this is gonna take me to the group. And if I view this application, I'll be able to see all the apps within that group that are available to my editor. So we've got some imagery, we've got our web maps, we've got our feature layers, everything we need is all right here. Now, let's take a look real quick. I wanna go into the Stormwater Asset Collector. This is the mobile app I'm gonna be working with. I wanna add a couple of things to this before we get started. So the first thing I'm gonna do in here, before I take this out in the field and actually start collecting data, I wanna add some imagery. So first off, I'm gonna change the base map to be my world base map. This is the Esri world base map. And I'll do the hybrid map. So I've got the Esri world base map that I can use to reference all of my features on the ground, but I wanna bring something else in as well. I'm gonna bring in another image service that's even more detailed. The Esri world base map data is updated a couple of times a year, but it has some limitations. The resolution on it isn't high in a lot of areas. And so while it works good, it's not the perfect solution. I actually have a layer that was provided to us by our friends at Nearmap, and it is highly accurate. So I want to bring it in. So we'll bring in the Port Tampa imagery. We'll add that to the map as well. And I'll get into the accuracy of it in a little bit. So you can see it dropped right on top of the map. And let's go ahead and let's save this. And now let's start collecting data. So I am ready to collect data. So all I'm going to do now is bring up my phone. So now I'm going to launch into Field Maps, and you can get this on the App Store, on the iOS App Store. You can go to Google Play and download it there for an Android device. I'm going to go ahead and download this. I've already signed in, and I have this asset collection. Actually, the Stormwater Asset Collector. So I'm going to click on this. It's going to open up, and you see my blue dot right in the middle of Port Tampa. I'm going to zoom in on it. As I said, that imagery from Nearmap is highly accurate. You can see the pavement markings, we can see the numbers, we can see all the pavement markings on the ground, we can even see the manhole covers. So if I turn that off for a moment, you can see the difference between it and the World Base Map Service. So this is the World Base Map Service. I can just barely make out the outline of those manhole covers, and I can't really even read the pavement markings. So probably see it now. There we go. I just realized my mobile devices, I'm a little bit ahead of you guys. It's catching up. So you can barely see those pavement markings. You can barely see the manhole covers. I mean, it's pretty hard to see any of that. So let's turn that imagery back on. So that near map imagery, that true ortho imagery really makes a big difference. And these images are updated continuously throughout the year. They update them about 4 times a year. And they provide imagery for most urban area, or just about every urban area in the US. They provide imagery for Canada and Australia as well. So if you're interested in this, we can certainly help make connections there. But this just gives you highly accurate imagery. I also have access to 3D mesh integrated imagery as well, so I can see my port in 3D and see the cranes and the buildings and really get a feel for all that data in 3D. But we're here to focus on mobile data collection, so let's do that. So let's start by collecting our first manhole cover. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click the blue plus sign in the lower right corner. I'm going to search for manhole. And I'm going to update that point so it's on top of the manhole. And now I'm just going to start filling out the attribute information. So we'll say the cone type is straight, the manhole location's in the yard, the surface type is asphalt, the cover is round. And I'm sorry, I'm going through this kind of quick, but in the pick list, I have multiple options, and these options are all configurable. So even though you're seeing these things, pre-populated, we do have the ability to change what you see. So I'm going to make my my cover type solid. If I were integrated with a high accuracy GPS, I could actually capture elevation data. I'm using my phone, so I don't have access to that, but we do have the ability to tie in elevation data. I'm going to leave the bench as unknown. The frame material, I'm going to call other. Wall material, other. Number of steps, we'll say 10. Today's date, and I could change this. I don't have to use, this is for the install. So the install may have happened years ago, but let's go ahead and take today's date. There we go. And then finally, it's in service. Step material is metal. Receive surface water, yes. And water exiting system into a waterway. And so once I've got all this information, if I scroll back up to the top, I can take a photo or I can attach a photo, and I can do multiple photos. I'm not limited. So I just capture my photo, and now I'll submit my record. All right, so I've got my first record submitted. Now, that was cool. That was great. I was able to go out and collect data in about 10 minutes. However, we can make this even better. So I'm gonna stop sharing my phone. We're gonna go back to what we were just looking at here on the map. And just so you can see this, if we zoom in, we should see our manhole cover. There it is. So there's my first manhole cover that I just collected. It's in the map. However, let's make this better. So I'm gonna go back to the to my content, and Field Maps comes with a configurable web application to help you configure the forms. So that's what I want to focus on next. So I'm going to click up here on my app launcher next to my photo. So you'll see my photo, my name, and then these 9 dots. This is the app launcher. We'll click on that. I'm going to click on Field Maps, and this is going to take me to the configurable the page to configure the application with the form tweaked a little bit. So we'll give it a second to load. And as soon as it's done loading, let's go into the stormwater asset collector. This is the app we were just working with. And then let's go ahead and go into content. And let's focus on the manhole layer, since that was the one we were just working on. Now, manhole is at the bottom of the list. I kind of don't like that. I'd like to bring it to the top of my list. So I'm going to drag it to the top of this list of manhole types. All right, so now it's at the top. I'm going to select it. And when I select it, you'll see the default values page opens up here on the right. I'm going to click on this. And now I'm going to start populating what I want those values to be. So my step material on a traditional manhole is always metal. And again, I can configure each one of these types with different values. So that's kind of the nice thing about this. All my manholes were actually were updated back in 2015, June 2015. So I'm going to plug in June 15th, 2015. And we'll leave the time 12 a.m. That's fine. The water system, we exit into a waterway. We have cone types are usually straight. Manhole location is in the yard, because that's where we're focusing on right now. And the surface type is always asphalt. They're always round on a traditional manhole. On my offset manhole, they might be square. And on my shallow manhole, the manhole type might be gasketed versus solid. So in a traditional one, we'll make it solid. We'll make the channel yes. We'll make bench yes. And then the frame material will make it other, because concrete's not an option. And again, I could add concrete as an option. It's currently not an option. The wall material, again, could be concrete. Number of steps is always 10. Receive surface water, yes. And so I'm plugging in all these things, and maintained by our agency. I could change this. Again, I could go into the configuration of these drop downs and change this to be Port Tampa. And for private, I could change it to be City of Tampa, depending on who updates it. Spatial source will make this GPS, because we're out with the mobile device. And then finally, all these GPS fields, these are actually populated if you use a high accuracy GPS. And I'll get into this in a little bit later, but if you use high accuracy GPS, it will actually capture all the GPS metadata, so you can see how good your connection was at the time when you collected that data. So if you're using a high accuracy device, you can actually maintain that. So now I've got all these configured the way I want them. I'm going to hit save and I'm done. So now let's see our work in action. So I'm going to bring my phone back, and this time I'm just going to back up and I'm going to reload my map. So it takes and gets those settings that we just updated. It captures all that information. So now let's go ahead and capture a new manhole. All right, now in my list, notice manhole is at the top. Give it a second to catch up with me. So manhole is the first item listed now. Unknown was the first item listed when I first did this collection, but we switched it when we went in and modified the values. Now, when I choose manhole, notice all of my attributes are all pre-populated. So it's straight, yard, asphalt, round, solid. All those values are pre-populated. So this really sped up the process for going out and collecting data. If I need to change something, let's say in this particular manhole, it just so happens it's square. I go in and I change it to be square. So I can override these defaults. I don't have to take the default if something is not what I see on the ground. If it's different than what I have for the default, I can just override it. So this is great. This sped up the process quite a bit. And now I'll take my photo and use the photo and let's submit. So now we have an updated manhole. Now, I said earlier that this is not only used for doing asset collections, but also doing inspections. So on this manhole, if I scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll notice manhole inspection. So we're going to tap on manhole inspection, and this allows me to add an inspection. So if I'm out collecting the asset, I might do the inspection at the same time. So I'm going to click add, and now this is going to open up the manhole inspection form. So again, I'm going to type in my name, the date that I did the inspection, the purpose is maintenance related, pre-cleaning, I'm going to say no pre-cleaning. I'm going to say, I'll mark today's date. Now, one of the things in that form I was just in earlier to change the defaults on manholes, one of the things I have the ability to do is set conditions up on fields when they show up. So for instance, if I say no pre-cleaning, I may not need to capture a date. So we can set this up so that if you answer this pre-cleaning question with heavy cleaning or jetting, it opens up, the next question is the date it was cleaned. Otherwise, if there's no pre-cleaning, then it doesn't open up that date at all. So you can configure field maps to open up forms conditionally based on how you answer the previous question. So that is really nice as well. I'm gonna also specify the weather. Runoff potential was none. The inspection date. This was a descent inspection. I'm sorry, inspection status. Evidence of surcharge. Cover fit good. Cover condition sound. And so each one of these items has different values depending on the type of damage you might observe, or no damage at all. And so the other nice aspect of this is if I go in later, so I'll submit this. So we now have an inspection. Now, if I come back again in say a year and do another inspection, again, it's the same process. I'm gonna scroll all the way down to the bottom. You're gonna see mobile inspection, and I'm gonna add a new inspection. So you see what the inspection I just did is listed. Now if I hit add, I'll add another inspection, and this time we'll say it's Matt and today's date. Now I'm not gonna do this whole thing. I just wanna show you, we'll submit this. I just wanna show you that it's creating that list of inspections. So you see my inspection, Now you see Matt's inspection below me. So this will create a history of every inspection being done. So we can actually look at the degradation of an asset over time. So we can see how particular assets grade out and start to look for issues. And maybe it's because there's a certain type of runoff going into the sewer system that's causing this particular manhole or this manhole well to deteriorate faster than other ones. So we can actually use these inspections to help us see that. And the first step is getting this in the hands of the inspectors so that they can do the asset collection and then the inspection. Now, let's take a look at how the rest of the organization can look at this data. So I'm going to stop sharing my phone. And now let's take a look at some applications on the web. So I'm going to go to my office, Stormwater Office users group. And let's view the application. And let's go to our stormwater viewer. So the stormwater viewer will let me see all the assets I've collected. So to get started, as soon as this finishes loading, we're going to generate our stormwater report. So we'll draw a box around Tampa and then click report, and then it's going to find all the assets. So it found 2 manholes. So we'll open this up and zoom in on the manholes that we just captured. There they are. And I can click on a manhole and I can see all the attributes that were captured about it. So we see when it was installed, we see who owns it. All those values are captured. In addition, I can see on the second manhole, again, these are all the default values that we updated on the app so that they would populate. And then at the very bottom, we even have editor tracking on these, so I know when someone went out and created this, and I'll be able to see if someone does an update, when they did the update. So we'll have a complete history, not only of inspections, but when people do make changes to this data, when they make those changes. So we tried to think of everything, and this is really the fastest way you can get set up with an application. And then if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, here are all the manhole inspections. So we see my inspection and we see the one Matt did. And if we open this up, we see all the values. So again, this is that whole concept of the asset collection and the inspection all in one app. And then we've got apps to help you visualize this data and see when things change and what their history is. And we can start to do analytics on the data. Now, I'm going to jump back to my Office apps, and I'm going to launch into the dashboard as well. All right, and then while that's happening, I'm going to grab a Pro package and get it downloaded and opened up. This is going to take a minute, and while we're taking a look at the dashboard here and momentarily, let's get rid of that one. All right, so I'm going to open that up, and while that's opening, let's go take a look at that dashboard. All right, so I'm going to open up my dashboard. And again, the dashboard, this dashboard is configurable. The dashboard that comes with this solution out of the box is just going to show you counts of all the assets you're collecting. So it's designed to give someone a view into how much is being collected. So if we're trying to get started, and we want to just keep track of all the different assets that are being collected, the number of catch basins, the number of outfalls, the number of manholes. This dashboard is going to show me those counts. Now, I'll show you in a moment how we can tweak this and add a map to this and add lists to this and zoom in on the list where we check. But this just gives me a real quick and dirty count of the number of assets we collected. To actually update this, I'm going to, let's take a look back here. Actually, at my content, there we go. So in my content, we have that dashboard. I'm gonna open this dashboard item up. And if we click on this item, we're gonna choose edit. So I'm gonna edit the dashboard, and I'm gonna show you how we can configure the dashboard with a map. So this is just taking the dashboard they gave us and extending it. And I'm not gonna write any code. I'm just gonna add in a couple of different widgets that are, it's a WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get style configuration. So we'll go ahead and we'll add our map. So I'm gonna pick my stormwater, actually my stormwater viewer. And then we'll add a legend, a layer visibility, and a base map selector. We'll click done. And now it's gonna add the map to my screen. Now I'm gonna add in a list. And I wanna track the manholes because that's what we're looking at. And then on this list, I wanna give it a couple of attributes. So for instance, let's do date collected, or date, or install date rather. And then for the, let's do asset type manhole, and let's put this on the next line down. And so you can see here, all we're doing is picking fields that we want to display. I'll add an asset ID. I don't have an asset ID yet, but I will when we open Pro. There's my, so we've got a asset type, an asset ID, which is currently blank, and an install date, which is not currently what I want to show on the first attribute. So that's fine. We'll fix all that in a little bit. So I'm gonna hit done, and we now have a list, but I want this list to zoom in to the selected manhole. So I'm gonna click configure one more time. I'm gonna go to actions, and in the actions, I'm gonna have it zoom to my stormwater viewer map. And I'm gonna have it show a pop-up, and I'm gonna flash the feature so we can see it. So now I'm gonna hit done. Let's get this organized so we can see everything we wanna see. And let's save it. So now we have our dashboard. So now when I click on a manhole, it should zoom in and flash the location. So, and it opens the pop-up. So you can see in the pop-up all the attributes I collected. We even see at the very bottom my image that I took, the photo I took. Same for this guy. And if I click on this here, it will zoom and flash it. And now I zoom in to actually see it. And there we go. All right, so I've shown you how to configure a dashboard. I've shown you how to configure a mobile ArcGIS field maps for mobile data collection. I've shown you how to collect the data, how to do an inspection. Now let's take a look at this data in Pro. So you see my map opened up in Pro. We see these red exclamation points. The first time you download your map, it's not gonna know where the services are, so you have to point it to the services. So the easiest way to do that is this. I'm gonna click on the top layer. In this case, I'm gonna click on my manhole. Map notes is in a different service, so I'll fix that one last. So I'm gonna click on the exclamation mark next to manhole, and it's gonna open up a dialog for me. I'm gonna go to my content, to the stormwater data management for ArcGIS Online folder, and I'm gonna go to my stormwater system editing service. Open this up. And now it's going to list out all the layers in that service. Manhole is one of them. So I'm going to find manhole. I'm going to select it, click OK. And in just a second here, all those layers, all those exclamation points are going to start to go away because the map is fixing itself. It's fixing its pointers. Once those pointers are fixed, I'll save the map. So then it will save the location where those services are. So I got to give it a second though to let it fix everything. So you see manhole is fixed. Now all the other layers are fixed as well. All right, so now we're fixed. It's the same process for the map notes. I'm just going to click on the exclamation point. I'm going to go to the portal. And I'm going to go to my map notes editing. Click on the map note. And it will fix that layer. And while it's fixing, I'm going to start zooming to where my manholes are located. All right, there we go. So give the map a second to catch up. Too far. There's my manholes. And so if I wanted to add another manhole, there you see the near map image. If I wanted to add another manhole, I can click edit here because this imagery is good enough where I can do the heads up digitizing. It's easily good enough for me to see those manholes clearly. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create. And I'm going to choose from my template list, my manhole. Might have went right past it. There it is. So I'll select it, and then I'll just drop the manhole right on the physical manhole on the ground in the image. And then in a second here, my attribute dialog will open up, and I can start to populate all the attributes about this. There we go. So there's my attribute. And then again, now notice none of these defaults populated because I configure those defaults for field apps. I have the ability to tweak these templates as well in Pro so that they also have the same drop down. So it is a separate configuration though. So you have to go in to each field and configure for Pro as well if you want to do that. I also can do editing through a web application. We provide a web application as well. So I'm going to go ahead and save this edit. I'm not going to update any of the attributes for now. And I'll show you the web application quickly. And so again, to get to that, I'm just going to go here, and we'll go to the editors group. So here in the editors group, we will choose the stormwater editors group, and one of the apps in this list is a web app builder web application that allows you to edit your stormwater points as well. And since that near map imagery that I showed you, I've actually created it as an image service, so it's actually served out as an image service on our portal. I can actually bring that into any of my web applications. Not only can I show it in Pro and in field maps, but I can use it as a service in my editor application as well. So here's my stormwater editor. I'm not going to actually do any editing in this because we're running close on time, but I just wanted to show you all the different ways that you have to access this data. We really tried to make it all inclusive and as get you started as quickly as possible and eliminate as many of the silos as possible so that you can do the editing wherever you are, however you like to do it. And this really enables you to comprehensively manage your asset program, whatever the asset may be at your port. So I hope this helps give you an idea of how you can get started quickly. I'm gonna stop here and I'm gonna pass it back to Matt.
Thank you, Eric. And you know, in less than 30 minutes, we went from downloading the template to being able to edit all of these things and really start to take action. And so that was an example based on managing assets, but let's go back to the key takeaways. We were able to do that quickly. We were able to do field inspections, and this helped eliminate data silos. So just a couple of real short examples of what else we can do. Some of you may already have an enterprise asset management system, and the great news is that we can integrate with those systems. So they can tell you what you have, and we can tell you where it is. It's very important. In addition to this, it can be used for other applications. This is an example that comes from our friends in Esri, Ireland, in which their customer P&O Ferries used Esri applications to facilitate terminal operations. There's a great YouTube video of this. It's a few minutes long, and it goes into detail of what they were trying to accomplish. And I just thought it was a great use case. Here's an example of a configurable dashboard that does powerful analytics. Now, we got this information from an Excel spreadsheet, and it enabled the terminal to compare its performance against its expectations, how it was doing against terminals, its peer terminals across the country. It also calculated queue times, dwell times, turnaround times, all kinds of great information. So we were able to leverage data from other systems and help them understand it easily. We can be used in other departments to include real estate management. So here's a simple demonstration showing leases that are expired and are upcoming for going to be renewed shortly. So it enables people to see what's going on, understand it better, and take action. Maybe you need to consolidate a couple of parcels. Maybe some reconfiguring needs to be done. You could also use this to find the right parcel for the right tenant by filtering out exactly what the tenant needs. Now, here's the call to action. How do we get to success? Well, we started out the discussion with looking at the Esri system of systems, and a lot of people think that, you know, getting the data perfect is the first step, and I would argue it's not, because perfection is the enemy of progress. What we really need to do is focus on this, getting the mobile app, helping people to see that your investment of time and money is going to pay off. And by doing that with a mobile app, they can tailor it to their specific needs. This also puts the user first. So to get started, we showed you some of the templates, and I want you to also know that we've got a very robust partner ecosystem. People in your community, your state, or your specific type of work that are eager to help you. We also have an Esri professional services team that can help you if you so desire. And then learning the technology. We have many different ways, and these are 4 ways that we can conduct the education, but we have an education team that can help you identify what's best for your needs. I encourage you to start to enable field mobility by starting with the user. Pick out one workflow, start with one user type, and start deploying today. That concludes the presentation, and I just want to say thank you for your time and hearing from us today. Terry?
Okay, thanks. And unfortunately, we've run out of time. We do have questions. We will answer those through. We'll actually reach back through an email and answer those questions. I would encourage all of you. There is a short survey right after you log out of the webinar. If you could please answer that for us and give us any other feedback for our webinars. With that, what I'd like to do is actually show the both Matt and Eric's emails, and I want to thank you for joining us today, and I hope that you'll join us in the future. Our next webinar will be on May 19th. And it'll be focused on port security systems. So with that, we'd like to close it off. And again, thanks for joining us today. So, all right, thanks. Bye-bye.